Peter, welcome to the show.
Thank you for having me.
I'm excited to have you on. I love your story. I love your journey. I can't wait for you to share it with the community and here at the Mindful Experiment. And thanks for just taking time to join us, man. I'm excited. So
Yeah.
let's get into it. Tell me a little bit about your story, your background. I know the listeners are going to love this. What's your journey to got to where you are today? All the things that led up to that process.
Well, then we got to start back when I was 9. I've done quite a few things. When I was around 9, I became a radio reporter at a national radio show, national radio in Denmark, where I'm from. And then that led to being on TV, doing the same thing. Eventually, my voice started changing when I got into teenage years, and I couldn't be a kids show reporter anymore. So I went on and started the first, basically, social media for artists back in 1997 or 8-ish, when I was 14, and sold that when I was 18. Then I became a professional DJ, started a band, had a couple of gold and platinum records on that, and then started a record label. Eventually grew my DJ career to where it wasn't fun anymore and burned out. Then while I was burned out and taking a break, I started tinkling with this project that's now Telcio, which I've been doing for the past 10, 12 years.
I love that. What a journey. And it's so awesome. You know, got to go a couple gold labels and so forth and whatnot. Records you said, correct?
Yeah.
That's awesome. And started a company at 14, sold at 18. That's pretty cool, man. That I must say.
Yeah. That was something.
And now you're, so was it always, was it just a smooth road the whole entire way? I know we were talking a little bit about some bumps in the road, and I'd love to just, if you don't mind, sharing a little bit of those for the listeners of that journey.
Yeah, I mean, it's a roller coaster. It's a perpetual roller coaster, I call it, because it never ends. Even after doing this for 10 years, it's still ups and downs every single day. But yeah, I've had a lot of things through my time. I'm not one of those good-looking kids that plays the guitar and that all the girls like, in school. Like I'm the kid that has to work for it, but I will work for it, and I have a crazy persistence. I almost like wouldn't even call it persistence, almost stubbornness. If someone tells me I can't do something, I'm gonna definitely do it, and I will do it better than you thought. So I have that in me, but yeah, I've also always gotten into everything 100%. It probably comes down to I have major ADD, and I didn't find out about that until I don't know 4 years ago. And I have so there's no half for me. It always has to be 100%. That also sometimes doesn't work, right? So I've been evicted, I think, twice from apartments and stuff because I can't pay rent because I just put everything I have into whatever project I worked on. That has changed a little bit now that I have a wife and kids. Of course, you grow up, right? But still, it's there's no half. I have to do everything full on.
I love that, and I can relate. I know how that is. It's I'm either 100% in or nothing at all, and it's just one of those. Yeah. Is that a principle that? Who did you just develop that, or was that something that was did you get from a family member or parent? How did that? Where did that develop from?
That's actually a good question. If I was to think about it, I think I have some of that from my mom. She was a very, very smart woman that she was an engineer and also a musician, so I have those two traits from her as well. But I think that probably comes from her. She was always like very neat and everything. Like everything was very perfect. Like even though it wasn't like starting companies or anything like that, it was still things was done right.
It's funny. You and I have very similar stories. I mean, it was my dad that was like that, where he was meticulous. I mean, about doing things the right way. He was a warehouse worker. He worked at a grocery warehouse, but then he had a side business for laying carpet, and it was very, very physical labor. And it was one of those things where I used to get so annoyed with him as a kid. I'm like, Dad, why do we have to sweep up the carpet and underneath before we put everything down? And it has to be perfect. I mean, it's not like just a quick sweep and, put all the big stuff away. That's it. No, he would scrape, make sure the floor was beautiful. And I'm like, no one's going to see this. Like, you're putting padding and carpet over this. It's not going to interfere with the cushion. But he was always about doing that. And from that process, I appreciate it because as a chiropractor, it's one of those things like when I do my work, it's like I am meticulous about doing things a certain way and making sure I'm not going to cut corner. I'm not going to do it's like I want to make sure I get my patient to this level. Regardless, do I have to go to that level? No, I don't. I can go to this level and they'll still get the results. But I'm like, no, I want to make sure I'm doing all that I can. So I always love asking sometimes people that question when they have something they bring up, like you were sharing. It's like, where'd it come from? It had to come from somewhere. So not maybe not. Some people acquire it. Sometimes it's like I didn't have it and I wanted to have it, and I just did the work to get there.
No, it's a good question. It's interesting because I really appreciate having that today, and at the same time, it's really annoying seeing your competitors, cutting all those corners and making more money than you. And it's just one of those things. But I wouldn't change it. I wouldn't want to. I just couldn't live with myself to do something half. That's yeah.
I appreciate bringing that up and sharing that because I get like that too, where I'm just like I'll look and be like, "Are you kidding me? That is not the way." Or that's you're saying you do this, but you're not really doing it. And I'm like, you're fooling the public. And you're not doing things the way they should be done. And there's a reason why we have systems in place for certain things, like certain processes or evaluations or procedures. And it's one of those things where I hear you, brother. I'm so with you. Even on I'm a business coach too, and I see it there. And I'm always just like, because again, same thing in the chiro world I've taken into my business coaching, and I'm always just like, no, I'm going to work with you. This is how I'm going to do it. I'm going to go full in on things, But it's a great trait to have. Because in my opinion, correct me if I'm wrong, but you just don't see it as much. Like you were just bringing that up. A lot of times it's just like, what do I have to do to get the deal? What do I have to do to get here? What do I have to do to get to this point? And instead of being like, well, what about doing it? What's your values that you hold on to, that you hold to be true? And then going from that perspective, going from that level into everything that you do.
Yeah, and I believe that also just brings the next step automatically. For me, I've never had these big goals in life. It's never been, I want to be a billionaire. It's about, the next little step. What's fun right now? What am I working on? And then, what's next? It's okay. Then that little thing can be checked off or whatever. Those things come automatically, and then when you don't have those big goals, you're open to other things as well along your way, and all of a sudden you end up in something completely different. For example, me starting a phone company, right? Like going from being a DJ to having a phone company. That's like very different if you think about that. But to me, it wasn't, because it was just part of that little journey.
You're sharing something that I talk a lot about, and it's one of the things like you follow, as a kid, you think of a 3-4-year-old, right? And I say this so many times on this podcast. I say this so many times to my clients and people, and I'm like, you want to be like a 3-4-year-old. And that is the reason why is one, that their mind's at the peak imagination, creativity. That's the peak state. And then the other thing is they follow what they love to do. And for you, it's, to me, to correct me if I'm wrong, you're living in the present, right? It's what's the one little thing, right? What's that one little thing? I'm not worried about where. And have you always been that way, or did life kind of teach you that?
I've always been like that. I am like a 3-4-year-old. I just want to have fun with what I do. Everything I work on, it has to be what I like to do. It's never about the money or anything like that. That follows, because if you like what you're doing, then you do a good job, then you'll make money off of it. That's just pretty natural. But it's not about making a lot of money. It's about having fun and enjoying what you do while you're on this planet. And if you go to, actually, it's funny if you mention these things, because if you go to my website, I have a quote there that says, I've never done that before, so I'm sure I'll be good at it. That's by P.B. Longstocking.
I love that.
It's so good. And that's really how I live my life.
It's a great way to live, my friend, and it shows. And this is where, sometimes people are like, you got to stay here, do this, follow this, go that route. And it's just like, no, humans, we can be anything we want. We can choose what we want, follow the path we want. I would say follow your joy, and you'll find all that you want out of this life and more. So I love it, man. That's great. You brought up something before, and I want to bring it up again too. So you found out you had ADD. Mm-hmm. So when you're doing work, you have like 55 different browsers, tabs open all at the same time, kind of like that?
Not necessarily tabs, but definitely projects at the same time. Things I'm doing, because, then I have to wait for something to load. Then I'll go do this at the same time while that's happening. I have at least 4 or 5 things going on at the same time, always. And I also actually have 3 days a week here at our headquarters. Now, most of us are working remotely. But at our headquarters, I have 3 days a week where no one else is at the office. Everyone else is working from home because otherwise I can't focus. I need that.
I love that.
Yeah.
I only ask because I mean I was an undiagnosed ADHD guy. When I got into chiropractic school, I was looking back, going, "Oh yeah, that's the poster child of that right there." Makes a lot of sense now. But you know, it's through the work of what I've done. It's amazing how you can enhance the beauty of it while minimizing the negative of it. But yeah, it's one of those things where, multiple tabs. Like if I'm doing a video thing, I'll get it going. All right, 12 minutes. All right, 12 minutes. I'm working over here, doing this and here, and I'm going over here. And then my wife will come and say, "What are you doing? You got two monitors. You got all these things going on." I'm like, it's all organized. It looks like chaos, but it's organized.
That's how it is.
I love it. Now you have a telephone business. I want to talk a little bit about that because we were chatting a little bit before about, looking at tech and the kind of how consumers have changed a little bit. And this, in the way maybe their demands or expectations. I'd love for you to share a little bit of that and just we'll dive into there from there.
Yeah. So essentially, we saw this happening like 10 years, 15 years ago when we started getting these DoorDash and these different services for food where you can get all your food delivered from your favorite restaurants whenever you want it. And then during COVID, people started ordering groceries online from their stores and, getting it where they want it, when they want it. And we're seeing the same things in telecom or in communications, essentially, where, the thing about having a phone number posted on your website and maybe an email address and saying, you can call us at these hours, that's just a no-go anymore. You have to be available wherever your customers want to talk to you and whenever they want to talk to you at any given time. So whether that being WhatsApp or Facebook Messenger or Instagram or Twitter or all these other different ways, emails, calls, and all these things you can do, you have to answer that. And Joe, the plumber down around the corner, he can't do that. Who can manage that stuff? It's difficult. I actually have an example myself because I was buying a car like a year ago, 2 years ago, a year and a half ago. And I was at the dealership test row and all that stuff, and was like, okay, I'm gonna go home and think about it overnight. And I sent an email. I actually got this dealer's business card, and I went home and I sent him an email asking something like, what it cost to upgrade to the one with the bigger engine, and just a couple of questions like that. And there's just crickets. Nothing. Like I heard nothing. So the next afternoon, I was like, okay, I'm done waiting. I went down to the other dealership that's kind of like the same, a competing brand, but the same car, essentially. They had the one I wanted, answered all my questions, and I bought it the same day. And, 2 weeks later, I got an email back from him asking, oh yeah, I missed this email. So the price would be this and this and this. It's like, dude, I already bought a car. You could have answered. And the thing is, and this is funny because I have a phone service, but I didn't want to call him at that point. I had a baby in my arm, and it was easier just to write an email on my phone. So he could have sold the car if he had answered that one. I could have called him if I wanted to, but that was just not what was me at that very moment, right? So because of that, he missed out of a sale of a car. That's a big one. But it's like this for everyone. So this is something that's changing a lot. So you have to find a way to be available where your customers are.
So is there so let's say there's business owners listening to this and it's one of those things where they're like, all right, how do I solve that problem?
Yeah. That's difficult. It's something that we've been working on for a long time, and we have a product coming out soon that's attempting to solve some of it. But it is difficult because you also need to know who it is you're talking to when they contact you, and you're not in the business necessarily of running a CRM, and maybe you do have a CRM, but you're not in the business of keeping that up to date as your main thing. And believe me, that's what you need to do to solve this. So we're working on a way, and it's going to be some open source stuff because it's not something that we can just do alone. Of securely identifying people based off of whatever contact information you have. So you can say, I have a phone number and an email address, and I can see that these belong to the same person, but I can't see anything else about that person. You want it to be secure. You don't necessarily want to give everyone your home address just because they have your phone number, right, or your email address. But at the same time, it would be really practical if you moved or got a new phone number that you could update everyone. Let's say all your friends and family and your Amazon and whatever you need to update to keep things running. and that you could just update that information centrally, and it gets pushed out to everyone that have subscribed to it, and you're allowed to subscribe to it, right?
That sounds like that would solve some nice problems there. Yeah, because when I think about it now, like, there's so much with AI and all that fun world, and like, oh, having a chat box and having a this and having a that just to answer. But
Yeah.
in the chiropractic world, I'm always like, yeah, but can that AI bot talk like I do? And I mean, we're not there
It
yet,
can.
but they are getting better.
Oh yeah, no, it can, and we actually have a product now that can do that. It will scan all your previous conversations, your emails, your support tickets, whatever you have, your internal wikis, documentation. That anything that you essentially allow it to scan, it can scan and learn from that. So it'll learn all the information that you have, historically, and it will also pick up on the way you talk, your wordings and your tone of voice. So yeah, we can definitely do that. That's not a problem. But the issue with that is also, because we have been working a lot on this, is that you have to dumb it down almost, so people don't get weirded out by it. We made one that sounds so good. It sounds very realistic. We put in like ums and ers and all these things to make it sound very, very real, that people got weirded out by it because they didn't know that it was a chatbot. And when they kind of picked up that it was, then they was like, oh, that's uncomfortable. So we actually had to make it sound more bodish when it comes to that.
That's interesting, because I mean, it's one of the things where that's the thing with AI now, right? You just can't tell.
Yeah.
Which, I mean, I even feel like, in the health world, of what they're going to be doing in the next year to 2 years, I think the way it's moving so fast, it's like you're going to be talking to someone who's like the AI doctor representation of it, and you won't even know that they're going to have to for certain purposes. But they're saying that what they're testing right now that I've been seeing, it's like it's scary good. Like,
It
it's better than
is.
what doctors would respond. They even done a study to see how doctors would give
Yeah.
advice. I don't know if you knew this or seen this or not, but it's like they used AI and they used medical doctors, and they looked at who would do better in that whole thing. And the AI, I think, was like 30%, 40% better than what
But
the
yeah,
doctors were doing.
it makes sense because you have a computer that can now analyze so much data historically, right? It can literally read all the books about a subject in no time, and then use that as your reference. So of course it can do really smart things, and it can look at a picture and tell that that person has cancer, just by comparing that picture of people that have cancer and people that are not have cancer, and analyze it and say, well, this picture looks more like the ones that have cancer than the ones that don't. So yeah, and it's a good thing, right? It's not necessarily going to replace everyone right away, but everyone's going to do different things than they do today. That's for sure.
Yeah, it's kind of crazy when you look at it. But that, going back to the consumerism then thing, so it's like are we getting to the point where we just demand that people are going to be available at all time, no matter what? Is it all industries, or is it specific base only, like in the car industry, kind of like what your experience story you were sharing? How's it looking?
It's everyone. Think about it yourself. Like you when you look something up or you need to talk to someone, where do you go, and how do you prefer talking to people? Is it phone calls everywhere? Like when you talk to your friends, is that how you prefer writing with them or texting with them, or is that regular text, or do you use some kind of messenger app, right? So it's everywhere, and the problem about that is really that, like, Joe the plumber down the corner is not in the industry of running those things. He's in the industry of plumbing, at least for the next few years, and that's really a challenge, because if you don't do this, someone else will be good at doing this, or have some tools for them that can do this, and they'll take your business.
Yeah, I can see that. One thing we learn, we're told all the time too, like in just different arenas, when you talk to marketing people or business in this essence of in coaching, or especially in coaching, but because I think it's more in coaching than like in a chiropractic, they expect, not a response to the next day, usually, for not always, but for them. I mean, nowadays with chat, I think as chiropractors are more archaic in our ways, we're not like always at the top of the notch when it comes to technology, but one
Well,
of the things
imagine if
is,
you are.
huh?
Like, imagine if you are, right?
Yeah.
You could probably win some business from your competitors who are archaic.
No, yeah, of course. And but going back to looking at that, not the chiropractics. I lost my train of thought here for a second, but
Sorry about it.
no, you're fine, man. And not the chiro side, but just looking at like I forgot where I was going with that. It was something about instant looking, utilizing and responding quicker. But anywho, Yeah, I'm going blank. So it's not coming back. It's gone. It's in the ether. But no, I kind of I see that in a sense, because even for like me, when you're talking about like how do you talk to friends and stuff, I'm like, yeah, I do text messaging. I don't call, but I've always been that
Yeah,
way. Um,
right,
I just don't like being on a phone. It's just I
right.
just don't unless I
And
have
that's the
to.
weird thing. I'm not either. I don't like being on the phone either. I run a freaking phone service.
I hear you on that one.
Yeah.
It's just like, I run a few podcasts and people go, so you must listen to a lot of podcasts. I go, not really. They're like, what? I'm like, I listen to books. I don't listen to podcasts much. I'm like, wait a minute, you're in the podcast industry. You have 3 podcasts. You got one and you don't listen to podcasts. I said, maybe 6 to 10 a year if I'm lucky. And they're like, seriously? I'm like, what? I just don't like listening to podcasts that much. It's just I like doing them.
Yeah.
I like being a guest on them, but I don't like, it's kind of like baseball. I love playing baseball when I was growing up. Do I like watching games though? Not really on the TV. I don't really enjoy it much. But I love playing in the game though. Love it. You can give me all day long, but to go watch it on the TV, I'm like, what's the point? Just tell me who wins, and that's unless
Yeah.
it's the playoffs or something.
Yeah.
But yeah, I digress, and I think that instant thing is I think it's just going to continue to come. So solutions in that is you have to have a product like yours that you have coming out, which can do all that, and make it a chat box and make it where that you have it doing things for you while you're sleeping.
Yeah.
Any other tips for people, business owners who are listening and going, man, I want to, what are other things I can do to not have that problem? So that way I am being at the forefront as much as possible.
Well, I think at least starting to look at what your uh, customers are doing, like who are your customers, and where do they communicate first, and at least go be there to begin. So that varies obviously depending on whatever target that you have. And at least sign up for that, and make sure that you actually look at it. There are ways you can monitor, let's say, Facebook, Instagram, and WhatsApp in one place. Facebook has that option. So at least try to pick some low hanging fruits, and then see what your competitors are doing. Are they doing this, or is there something that you could be doing here that they're not doing yet, that you could be winning some business? Because I mean, that's what we do in our business with in terms of getting new customers for us. It's all about SEO. That's the only way we've been able to get business, because our competitors are so big and we can't afford to compete against them on advertising. So we have to find other ways. So we had to go out and look, okay, what is it that they're not doing that we could be in? For example, that's video right now that we're investing a lot in, because that's where SEO is going, right? So look at your competitors and see what they're up to, and see if there's something that's trending in the market in general, and see if you can find something that they're not doing.
I love that. Brother, I could talk to you more about tech. I could talk to you more about your journey and all that fun stuff. But before we go, how can people learn more about your company, what you're doing, follow you, and all that? So I know you're doing video, all that stuff. How do they follow you?
Yeah. Well, so go to telcio.com, TELZ as in zebra, IO.com. There's a free trial and it's fun to play with. So really go sign up for that. If you need some phone service for your business, it's all a B2B product. And if you want to get in touch with me, peterschroeder.com. There's all my contact information, all my social media there. And really go in and send me an email. Have you thought about this? How many personal emails do you get? Like, it's all sales pitches and automated emails from your vendors, but there's no like personal emails that say, hey, what's up? Actually, I love getting that.
Isn't that weird, right? I mean, it's
Yeah.
once in a while I'll get one and I'm like, oh, cool. This person actually is having a conversation here. All right, cool. Instead of me just deleting and deleting and deleting and deleting and unsubscribing. I hear you.
Yeah.
I love it, man. Well, I appreciate the work you're doing and solving some of those problems as people want more instant access to things. And yeah, I could see that movement happening more and more. And like I said, now I remember my thought. It was in the coaching where I was saying, if you don't respond as quick and get to them as fast as possible, then you're going to lose them instantly pretty quick to someone else, which is so true because I've seen it so many times in the coaching room. So, well, thanks for being on. I appreciate you taking the time, brother. And we'll talk again very soon.
Thank you so much for having me.